Hello to my future self, to family, friends, and strangers that may be watching. I'm just checking in for my weekly update on what's been going on our homestead this week. Don't have too much to report, not for lack of activity, but just for lack of time to collect information and share it. We finally had some warm weather. I'm recording this on Friday, June 2nd. We do have a few more cold nights coming up next week, so I still am not putting my pepper plants or my sweet potatoes out. We're supposed to have one night around 50 degrees Fahrenheit and then 2 or 3 more nights in a row around 52 to 53. So I just want to give them the best chance possible to not be stunted. We don't have a short growing season here, so waiting another week won't make a big difference on them. The calendula plants are finally starting to flower. I prefer them much, much more, especially over marigolds. The calendulas are very useful medicinally, so I like to save those flowers and use them for teas and salves, and they are just so pretty. Well, my husband got a little project done of getting a 8x8 concrete pad poured next to our above ground pool. Just gives us somewhere with a gravel-free landing zone so our feet aren't really dirty when we get in and out of the pool. We'll be able to put an umbrella and chairs up on a nice flat spot. He also wanted to try out a different method this year for drying our garlic and our onions. So he's built this rack that we're hoping to be able to slide everything in and out of. And he's going to do some kind of pulley system and hang it up in the solar shed so we can lift it up high and it's out of the way while they're drying. And then the rest of the year, the rack can just stay up in the air. So it's not one more thing that has to be stored on the ground. And speaking of storage, I'm definitely not a minimalist, but I also don't like clutter and mess and having extra things that have to be dusted. So I do try to keep things to a minimum. But when you have a homestead, you need a lot of things. When you cook from scratch, you need a lot of things. So I have been trying to organize my working pantry that's in my kitchen. I'm going to work on my other storage pantry off the laundry room. I need to go through there and pull out any canned foods or dehydrated foods that are older than 2022 and try to get them used up in the next couple weeks. I'm going to go for that challenge. If I don't know how to use them, I need to figure a way how to use them, such as dehydrated potatoes that I've done several years ago. Because if I can't cook with them, then what's the point of continuing to store potatoes that way or to preserve potatoes that way? If you have found a way that works for you to eat dehydrated potatoes that are in cubed form or sliced form, please share with me. I'd love to hear about it and give it a try. And up next are just a few clips that I had time to record this week. It's a rainy day, so I'm looking over my garden layout and my wall and ground beds and figuring out which beds are empty now. So it looks like wall bed 1 is empty now. That's where I took potatoes out last week. And wall bed 3 is mostly empty. There's a potato or two here that I'm going to let grow, but anything left in here I could take out right now, and that would be empty. And then I have empty by mid-June and empty by the end of June. And I'm just keeping track of these so I know what I need to be starting seeds on now, what I need to be planting for fall, and also if there's anywhere I can fit some flowers in that will bloom and be done before I need to put some fall crops in those same places. We grow hardneck and softneck garlic here, both varieties. And with softneck, you have no maintenance on the garlic. But the hardneck grows these things called scapes. They come up out of the center. Do you see all those little curves that look like cane hooks or shepherd hooks on top? They are going to try and produce more garlic by seed. And we don't want that because it makes the bulb smaller that's in the ground. So usually every June or so you come out and see this little thing on the end. That's where it's going to try and put seeds for garlic in. So you just follow this down and clip it. Let's see if I can do that with one hand. So that's called a garlic scape, and they are edible. So as you can see, I have a lot to cut here, but you want to get those cut in order for your bulbs to finish developing before you harvest. Fun fact, if you want to keep your cauliflower white until harvest, then you have to shade the cauliflower head, otherwise it will change colors in the sun. And the way they keep it white for the grocery store is the commercial farmers take the whole head of cauliflower and they rubber band it closed. And that puts shade on there. But another simple way to do it for the home gardener is to snap a leaf and bend it over on top, just like I did here. It's a big old cauliflower. I just snapped this leaf and laid it down. So that's what I've done on all the ones that have started to get big. And this one probably deserves a little shade too. And that will keep the cauliflower in the shade. This is the pile of garlic scapes that I collected from the hardneck garlic. It's likely that I missed one or two because something always hides. I'm going to go ahead and take these down for the chickens for them to enjoy. And we did lose a branch on one of our older peach trees this week. We didn't get it supported in time. We could tell it was going to need support. It was very loaded with peaches, even though we thinned it a lot. And the branch snapped in a storm that we had last week. So that was a sad discovery on a morning walk this week. But thankfully, that third peach tree is bearing a lot of fruit this year, which was unexpected. Thus, we come to the end of another week. And if you've stuck around until the end of this video, I thought I would share a little story time with you. This week, I had an experience with God restoring joy for me when Satan had done his best to snatch it away. The enemy knows specific ways that he can trip each of us up. And mine tends to be a very critical inner voice, a loud one. And I know it's, programming from childhood, and the Lord is working with me through those issues. But when the broken record in my head starts playing the "You're a Failure" tune, it can be pretty paralyzing. It's like my brain won't let me think through any logical reasoning, and I'm stuck in a rut next to the path that I want to be on. After an hour or two in that rut, I received an unexpected phone call from the dentist's office. Now, I've been on a waiting list for over a month to have a tooth checked out that's been hurting for about the past 3 months. And they had a cancellation and they could fit me in for a visit around noon. And I accepted the appointment, but still feeling pretty crummy and knowing it was just in my head, I stopped to pray at the end of our driveway, as we always do before we travel. And in addition to asking for travel protection, I asked God to help me hear His voice, because I knew the thoughts that I was hearing were not from Him. And in my own strength, I could not silence those voices. I couldn't do anything to think my way out of it. And I knew that if I could just hear Him, it would silence all the rest. We never know how God's going to answer our prayer requests, but I gave Him permission and went on my way. Now, when I got to the dentist office, this is a kind of new office that we've been going to for the last 6 months or so, and the dentist happens to be a Christian. And the way I know that he's a Christian is that in the waiting room of his office and in all the dental chair offices, he has the Christian radio station playing. And other than a few songs by Lauren Daigle, I haven't ever really listened to the modern Christian music. It's not my preference, but I really appreciate that that's the witness he has for his community, and it's a much better choice than listening to the regular radio if you have to listen to music while you're in a waiting room. But when I went in the day that I was struggling with negative thoughts, it was like just what I needed to hear. I would never have chosen to turn that radio station on in the car, but having to sit in the waiting room and listening to the songs of encouragement and faith, like it was just what I needed to hear. And I realized on the way home that that was how God chose to help me hear his voice that day. I guess God has to get a little creative with his stubborn, hard-headed children that aren't very good listeners. And he did it by giving me a toothache. Because as it turns out, there's nothing wrong with my tooth. There's no cavities, no nerve damage. I have simply been brushing a little bit too hard in that spot, and the enamel has gotten worn away, and so that's why I've been having a little bit of sensitivity in that area. So hopefully that will heal up over the coming months, and God will keep working with me, and I'll become a better listener. So keep up the good fight, my friends. Satan is still kicking at us during his final moments, but God is sovereign, and you can trust him with all things. And if you forget, just ask him to remind you so that you can continue to live joyfully.